In this video, I'll show you how to easily embroider a baby jacket with woolen embroidery threads. I'm using Laine de Colbert by DMC, but you can use any type of tapestry thread. Keep in mind that wool is hand wash only and only should be laundered at the wool setting of your machine. Use regular cotton or linen thread if you want to be on the safe side. When it comes to clothes, I personally try to avoid knots on the inside as much as possible. Here is another method to anchor the thread. Make a very short stitch on the inside of the jacket. This way the anchor stitch doesn't show on the outside. Then make a second stitch directly over the first one. Pull the thread to test if it is holding. If not, make a third stitch over the second one. For the French knot, wrap the needle 2 or 3 times. It is important in which direction you wrap, so closely watch how I do it here in the video. Then stick the needle near the point where the thread exits the fabric and pull through. During this step, I like to hold the thread with my left thumb to keep the knot taut. For a detailed tutorial on French knots, take a look at the Stitch Lexicon playlist, where I show many stitches individually. Repeat making French knots until you have filled out the entire shape. To secure the thread end, stitch through the threads on the back a couple of times. This time I'll use the already existing threads to weave in the next color. Move the needle through in different directions to anchor your thread. This works great with wool thread since the fibers will start to felt on the inside over time. Now it is time for the stem. I'm using stem stitch here. Hold the thread downward when stitching. Stem stitch looks really nice with thick wool threads. I want to use the thread for some leaves too, so to secure the thread when moving it to the new starting point, weave along the back side of the stem stitch. Especially for clothes, you don't want long traveling threads on the back side. They are prone to break. So secure the thread with this method and you are safe. For the leaves, use long and very slanted satin stitches. This works great for long and narrow leaves. If you need a marking line, make some long stitches with leftover cotton embroidery thread or sewing threads. After finishing, you can pull them out. This is what I used here on the left and right in pink. Take some time to decide the position of each stitch. It is better to stitch slower than to rip out stitches again and again. Especially with thick threads, it really shows when a stitch doesn't sit right. To secure the thread, weave in the end on the back. The Lazy Daisy is a lovely embroidery stitch for flower petals. Here I'm only stitching the bottom half of the flower. If you want, you can stitch the full circle. Set each petal close to another and secure with a short stitch in the end. Here's another way to stitch a stem with leaves. First, do a line of stem stitches. To add tiny leaves to the stem, I use single chain stitches. For even spacing, use the stem stitch segments as a means of orientation. Try not to stitch through the stem stitches though. Also, avoid making long threads on the back and weave along existing stitches like shown before. Next up is the fly stitch twig. Start with a single stitch and add more and more fly stitches to it. To make the twig look more natural, increase the size of each fly stitch toward the bottom. You can use the techniques in this video on many types of wool fabric. To embroider these flowers and leaves on knitted socks, watch the tips and tricks in my other video. I wish you a lovely time stitching.